Good morning, everybody. So today I'm going to be reading to you a book called Just Kids. It's by Patti Smith. It's an autobiography about herself, but she also talks a lot about this man named Robert Mapplethorpe. Now, Robert Mapplethorpe was her lover, and he actually eventually turned out to be one of the most controversial and the most famous photographers that this world has pretty much ever seen. And he actually died at a very young age from a very widespread epidemic that was going on during the 1900s. And so this book is kind of in remembrance of him, and it's about Patti Smith and Robert's life. So I'm going to be taking you to a passage in this book. It's on page 117 if you want to go ahead and flip there right now. And this passage, I think, is fairly important because it's able to show Patti Smith's writing ability, which is really, really just great. So Patti Smith was an artist, a songwriter, a poet, but really her strong suit is writing. She's a fabulous writer. The way that she uses her words, the way that she uses structures her sentences, it's really just it's really great, and we'll be able to see from our reading right here. And so this passage that I'm going to read is about Andy Warhol. Now, I know from previous knowledge that Robert, so Patti's lover, really, really loved Andy Warhol. So in this passage, I'm going to see here how Patti Smith uses literary terms, literary elements to make me as a reader know whether or not she likes Andy as well or she doesn't like Andy. So let's start on the second paragraph on our first visit, and let's go. On our first visit, we only made it as far as the front section. We sat in a booth and split a salad and ate the inedible chickpeas. So right then and there, I'm going to highlight and underline the word inedible. So she's at this place, she's at a restaurant that's highly associated with Andy Warhol. And if I were at a super good restaurant, you'd think that whatever you ordered would be edible, not inedible. So that is not good connotation right there. So Patti Smith uses very negative connotation right here. So I'm going to take note of that and remember that. So right now, I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to predict based off the first sentence that Patti Smith does not like Andy, but I'll see. So let's continue. Robert and Sandy ordered Cokes. I had a coffee. That's kind of confusing to me. I'm going to underline that. I'm going to circle it. I'm going to do whatever I need to make note that why. I'm asking myself, why would she just order a coffee? I don't know. It's a little confusing to me. So just because it is, I'm just going to take note of it. The place was fairly dead. Sandy had experienced Max's at the time when it was the social hub of the subterranean universe, when Andy Warhol passively reigned over the round table with his charismatic ermine queen, Eddie Sedgwick. So I really like this sentence. I think that Patti Smith is trying to show us something really personal about her feelings here. So I'm going to highlight and take note of this sentence. When Andy Warhol passively reigned over the round table with his charismatic ermine queen. So here, I'm picturing a big round table from the past where, the medieval knights and the king and the queen would all sit at this huge table and discuss important matters. But the most key word here to note is the word passively. Now, I don't really know what the word passively means. I'm a little confused on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to underline it, and I'm going to just look at it real quick again, and I'll read it over again passively. And maybe I'll try to look for a root word here to try to connect with some other word that I may already know. but I don't see anything here that gives me any connection to something that I know. So at this point, since I can't really make a good guess, I'm going to go to my dictionary. Now, you can use your Chromebooks and just go to the internet and just type in passively. So passively means in an accepting manner without active response or resistance. So that's kind of strange. I'm asking myself, if Andy Warhol's so great, why is he being so passive? He's kind of ruling like a mouse. Shouldn't he rule like a lion if he's so great and powerful? So here I'm noticing that, again, maybe Patti Smith doesn't like Andy Warhol. So let's continue. The ladies in waiting were beautiful, and the circulating knights were the likes of Ondine, Donald Leons, Rosenberg, Dolly, Billy Name, Lichtenstein, Gerard Malagna, and John Chamberlain. In recent memory, the Round Table had seated such royalty as Bob Dylan, Bob Newirth, Rico, Tom Buckley, Janis Joplin, Viva, and the Velvet Underground. So I'm going to underline and highlight this last sentence once again, and it was kind of long, so just so I fully understand what's going on, I'm just going to reread it. So in recent memory, the Round Table had seated such royalty as Bob Dylan, and then she goes on to name the other names. So from previous knowledge, I'm pretty sure I know that Bob Dylan is a pretty famous guy, right? And Janis Joplin, I recognize her name as well. So I know that these are other famous people that she's referencing here. So I feel like here, Patty's kind of saying like, why is Andy Warhol being compared to all these other great people? It just doesn't seem to make sense to her, really. So I really feel as though Patty's making a jab here again at Andy Warhol. She's saying that, in her previous memory, she remembers all these great people sitting at this round table, and now it's Andy Warhol. Where's the correlation? She doesn't see any. So I really like the way that she structured her sentence here, because it really allows myself as a reader to know that she doesn't like Andy Warhol. And she did it very cleverly. She used a really good analogy. She made an allusion to the round table, which makes me see in the past. So let's move on to the next sentence. It was as darkly glamorous as one could wish for. I really, really like the phrase darkly glamorous. That is so contrasting. It's just insane. So it really makes me see something totally just what's here. So I'm envisioning someone dressed in all black, but yet they're covered in glitter and diamonds, so they're dark, but somehow they're making it work. It's glamorous at the same time, very contrasting, very confusing. It's a very confusing image to picture in my head. So I'm going to take note of this because I really, really enjoy this. So let's continue. But running through the primary artery, the thing that ultimately accelerated their world and then took them down was speed. Amphetamine magnified their paranoia, robbed some of their innate powers, drained their confidence, and ravaged their beauty. So here, Patti Smith really ultimately is saying that, living the high life, it can be great, but there's huge downfalls that come with it. So I'm noticing that, okay, maybe it's not so great to be famous. But so we'll go ahead and stop there. That's where we will draw our line and make our mark. So now I'm going to look back at all of the things that I did underline and all of the things that I did highlight and make note of, and I'm going to come to a conclusion here. I'm going to draw from everything that I noticed, and I'm going to make a conclusion. So I'm looking back at the word inedible. I'm looking back at I had coffee. I'm looking back at passively reigned. I'm looking back at in recent memory, the round table had seated such royalty as so. I'm looking back at darkly glamorous, and I see that really all this negative connotation, all this sarcasm. I'm going to come to the conclusion that Patti Smith was not a fan of Andy Warhol and she did not like him at all. Now, looking back at the strategies that I used to come to this conclusion, I realized that probably the thing that helped me the most was reading over sentences and rereading them in order for myself to fully understand what is going on here. Because some of these sentences are really long and it's hard to remember everything that happens in a long sentence because your mind is just going on and on and on and you're just worried about getting to the next word and reading it. So it really helped me to take the time to slow down and go back and reread a sentence because there's nothing wrong with that. You want to have perfect clarification and you want to really comprehend what's going on. Otherwise, why are you reading? So that is our look at page 117 of Patti Smith's Just Kids, and that's how we noticed all the different literary elements and all the type of writing that Patti Smith used to evoke her readers to understand that she doesn't like Andy Warhol. Have a nice day.